Welcome to OVW's Tribal Governments Grant Program Pre-Application Information Session. The Tribal Governments Program provides grants to tribal governments or authorized tribal designees or consortia to respond to domestic and sexual violence in their communities. Eligible entities for tribal governments funding are Indian tribal governments, tribal designees, or tribal consortiums. The Tribal Governments Program has 12 statutory purpose areas. Slides 4 through 8 list all of the purpose areas for the Tribal Governments Program. The statutory purpose areas are also listed in the Tribal Governments solicitation. Applicants must address at least one purpose area. However, applicants can address as many purpose areas as they like. Now, all applicants must select a project type. Applicants may propose either a standard project or an improving tribal responses to violence against Native women capacity building project, which will be referred to as the ITR Capacity Building Project. So under a standard project, applicants must propose activities under one or more of the 12 statutory purpose areas. ITR capacity building applicants will engage in an assessment process and develop a project implementation plan in consultation with OVW designated technical assistance providers. The ITR capacity building project is more appropriate for applicants who have never received funding under the Tribal Governments Program or who do not currently offer services for victims of domestic or sexual violence within their communities. Eligible entities for tribal governments funding will apply as either a new or a continuation applicant. New applicants are those that have never received direct funding under the Tribal Governments Program or whose previous tribal government's award ended more than 12 months ago. Continuation applicants are those that have an existing or recently closed award. Please note that tribal governments or tribal designees or tribal consortia that received a 36-month award as a lead applicant under the Tribal Governments Program either last year or the year before are not eligible to apply this year. And also, current grantees with a substantial amount of unobligated funds remaining, which is 50% or more of your previous award funding remaining, without adequate justification may not be considered for funding or may receive a reduced award amount if selected for funding. All applicants must demonstrate that their proposal was developed in consultation with a qualified partner as defined here on slide 12. So all applicants must submit a letter of support from their qualified partner. Slide 12 lists the link to a sample letter of support. More information on the letter of support can also be found in the tribal government solicitation. And note, tribal governments with a domestic violence or sexual assault program must also submit a letter of support from a qualified partner. A letter of support from the tribe's domestic violence or sexual assault program does not meet this requirement. An applicant that is a tribal designee or a tribal consortium must include with this application a tribal resolution or other document demonstrating the authority to apply from each tribe or tribal consortium member. Failure to submit a tribal resolution or other document demonstrating the authority to apply will result in the application being removed from consideration. Slides 14 through 18 list all of the items required for a complete application. Now, a copy of the tribal government solicitation can be found at the link here on slide 14, which is on the very top. Now, required application components are a proposal abstract that must be completed in Just Grants. It will not be scored. Data requested with the application, again, is completed in Just Grants and it is not scored. The proposal narrative. So if you are submitting a standard application to do a standard project, you must submit the purpose of the proposal section, what will be done section, and who will implement section of the proposal narrative. If you are submitting an application for an ITR capacity building project, you only have to submit the what will be done section of the proposal narrative. The next required item is the budget. All budgets must be completed in Just Grants via a web-based form. The budget must display a clear link between the specific project activities and the proposed budget items. The budget should not contain any items that are not supported by the proposal narrative. The budget must cover a project period of 36 months and include the required OVW sponsored training and technical assistance as outlined in the solicitation. A letter of support from a qualified partner is also required. And again, we'll make another note that tribal governments with a domestic violence or sexual assault program must also submit a letter of support, and the letter of support cannot come from the tribe's own domestic violence or sexual assault program. Again, if you are applying as a tribal designee or a tribal consortium, you must also submit a tribal resolution or other document demonstrating authority to apply from each tribe or tribal consortium member. This is a requirement, and if it's not submitted, the application will be removed from consideration for funding. A letter of non-supplanting is also required. A confidentiality notice form and applicant disclosure of duplication in cost. All of these can be found, more information can be found in the tribal government solicitation. So the next couple of slides, I'm going to focus on aspects of your application that relate to the documents that the financial team from the OVW Grants Financial Management Division, or GFMD for short, reviews. More specifically, I will discuss some items that GFMD has identified from prior year applications that could help with expediting the budget review process. I'm going to highlight certain aspects of the pre-award risk assessment and provide you with a link to a detailed webinar on how to develop the budget that will be included in your application. First, I will highlight the items identified in the data requested with the application, which is completed by all applicants in a survey in Just Grants. A list of questions included in the survey appears at the end of the solicitation under the heading Survey Questions. Applicants should click on the survey name, pre-award risk assessment to access and complete the survey in Just Grants. Specifically, two items I would like to discuss are the single audit response and the IRS three-step safe harbor procedure. OVW requests that all applicants provide a statement as to whether they have expended $750,000 or more in federal funds during their last fiscal year. If they have, then they indicate that and also specify the end date of their last fiscal year. However, GFMD is finding that applicants do not always include all of this information. Please ensure that this question is answered in its entirety on the data requested with application survey in question number 3. Another item that I would like to highlight from the solicitation is specifically for nonprofit organizations. If you use the IRS three-step safe harbor procedure to determine your executive's compensation, you are required to provide a disclosure letter. The solicitation provides further details and a link to a sample letter. Note that there are 4 required parts of this disclosure letter. The sample letter provided outlines all 4 parts of the disclosure, so please be sure to follow the sample and provide a response to each of the 4 pieces. The next item that I will discuss is the pre-award risk assessment survey, which assists GFMD during their pre-award risk assessment review for all applications. Each applicant must prepare a response to all 11 questions, and each question has multiple parts. It appears from prior years that applicants do not always answer all parts of the questions, which in turn requires GFMD to reach out to the applicant, which may delay funding decisions. Some of the most common issues that have been encountered have been, for example, in question 2, where the applicant indicates that they do indeed have internal policies, but they don't provide a brief list of topics covered in the policies and procedures. For question number 3, some applicants fail to provide a brief summary of the organization's process for tracking expenditures, and more specifically, whether or not it tracks budgeted versus actual expenditures. These are just a few examples, but in general, please make sure you read each piece of each question and provide a full and comprehensive response. Slide 20, this slide shows resources, some of the key resources that are available to you in creating your budget. These links are very helpful and you can use them as needed. Over the last couple of years, GFMD has developed a detailed webinar presentation on how to develop a budget to be submitted with your OVW application. This presentation addresses some of the challenges that you may face with your budgets and provides some insight on OVW's budget review process. And the webinar can be found at the link on this slide. Additionally, the Just Grants page has resources on completing the web-based budget in Just Grants. And next up is the Uniform Guidance, which can be found at 2 CFR 200. Use your favorite search engine for this one. Other resources include the DOJ Financial Guide, as well as the Tribal Government Solicitation. I know this can be a lot of information to process, so if you have any questions about the GFMD information discussed, please feel free to contact the GFMD Help Desk at the information located on this slide, which is slide number 21. So now slides 22 through 30 provide detailed and helpful information on submitting an application. I will not go through these slides, but please review these slides at your convenience. And note that all of this information is also located in the Tribal Government Solicitation on slide 30, which I'm getting to. On slide 30, it lists the link to the Just Grants website that has videos on submitting an application. And then finally, both this PowerPoint presentation and a transcript of this presentation will be available on the OVW website's Resources for Applicants webpage. And lastly, just some key information. Please read the solicitation in its entirety. The application process is a 2-step process. Application materials will be started in grants.gov and fully submitted in Just Grants. Please start the application submission process in grants.gov and Just Grants at least 48 hours before the application deadline. If you have any questions after reviewing and reading the solicitation in full, you can contact the Tribal Governments Program with programmatic questions, the OVW Grants Financial Management Division with financial questions, and or the Just Grants Help Desk with technical questions using the contact information listed on slide 31, which is the slide up right now. This concludes the Tribal Government's pre-application information session, and good luck.